right, so let's take a look at exercise 7. This is an example of handling mouse events. The idea behind this is it's a little more complicated program. I wanted to give you something that you could actually use, and this program has you create a drawing window, a drawing panel, or a drawing pad, if you will, that you can actually draw on and erase from. And it comes to us courtesy of mouse events. I'm going to start at the top of the program and work my way down, and I hope that it becomes understandable on how all this works. Just give me 1 second here to clear this out, and I'll minimize this screen. I'm not going to follow through going line by line with the debugger because I think it's just going to add a little bit of complication. And because of the type of mouse movements we are handling, we'll never get anything done. All right, let's start at the top. The first thing I do is I've defined a graphics class. I've defined a graphics class object called G. This is going to be important because I'm going to need to draw on the screen. And in order to do that, I need a graphics class object. Notice what I'm importing. Notice I'm importing java.awt, the abstract window toolkit. That gets us the graphics class. That also gets us the toolkit to get the screen size. We have the swing library, which of course gives us everything that we're working on, all the components that we're working with, and finally java.awt.event provides us with the event handling interfaces and their respective methods. Notice we are implementing both mouse motion listener and mouse listener. There is 1 or 2 event handlers from each of those interfaces that I want to use, so I need to include them both. Again, we're getting a graphics class. We're creating a graphics class object along with 2 integers, x and y, and an integer for size. The constructor for the drawing pad, of course, takes the title, as all of our windows have so far, and passes that title to the default constructor for the J-frame. We get the content pane, and we set the background color to white. We also set the background color of the window to white. We create a window handler object called myWindow, and we add window. We let Java know we're going to handle the window, the windowing events through that class, through the window handler class. We also add the mouse. We also let Java know we're going to be handling mouse motion listener events, and that's going to and the code to handle that will be in the drawing pad class. We also let Java know we're going to do mouse listener events, and again, those handler methods will be contained inside the drawing pad class. You'll see we have a main method in here. We can have that. We can have a class that not only defines an object but also has a main method. It's a shorthand that I don't usually like, however, to save some complexity in this application, I've decided to put everything in one file. What are we doing in the main method? Well, we're creating a drawing pad object called pad. We are getting the screen size because we want this window to appear in the center of our screen. To get it to appear in the center of our screen, first we have to get the screen size. We're going to parse that out into individual integers to make it easier to use. We have to set the size of the window that we're going to be displaying. We have to get the size of the window and put it in frame and store it. We're going to store it in frame size. We have to figure out where to start the top left corner of our window. To do that, we take the screen size, subtract it from the. We take the width of the screen, subtract it from the size of the screen or the size of the window, and divide it by 2. We do the same thing with the height. This will get us the Y location. We take the height of the window minus the height of the, or I should say the height of the screen minus the height of the window, and divide that by 2. We then set the location of the drawing pad. Remember, that's going to be the top left corner of our window. we set that location to the values that we figured out. And the actual numbers used will vary depending upon the size of the monitor and the resolution of the monitor. We then set the drawing pad visible. The program then sits and waits. It waits for either a mouse pressed or a mouse dragged method to occur, or the window closing event to occur. When the mouse pressed happens, that's when the mouse button is first clicked. When it's in the window and it is clicked, the first thing we're going to do is get the current mouse's current X and current Y. The mouse event has methods to retrieve the current location as X and Y coordinates on your monitor. So I need to know those starting points. When the mouse dragged event is triggered, I create the graphics object and I call a method called getGraphics. That's going to get me the current graphical instance for the application. I then ask the question, is meta down? Is meta down is another method of the mouse event. What that lets us do is that tells us if the alternate mouse button, usually the right mouse button for us, whether or not that button has been clicked. If the right mouse button has been clicked, we go into erasure mode. And to do that, we take the color, we get the background color by calling the getBackground method. The background color, what that does is we would then essentially draw over the area with the background color, essentially erasing anything that we've got. To do that, we draw a filled rectangle that is essentially the current location minus whatever the size is. So what we're doing here is we're essentially setting a very small, a couple of pixel wide rectangle that is being drawn in the background color so as to appear as if it is erasing the content on the screen. However, if we're using the left mouse button, not the right mouse button, we're going to draw a line. It's as if we want to draw. So we're going to set the color to black, and we're going to draw a line. We're going to draw a line from the starting point that we got when we first pressed down on the mouse, button, and we're going to draw that line until wherever the mouse dragged event is triggered, whatever that current location is. And then we're going to set the start to that same spot. What's going to happen is this mouse dragged is going to be called over and over and over and over and over again for one line. If we draw one line, say from here to here, the mouse press event only fires once, but the dragged fires every time I move that mouse with the button down. And it just keeps firing and keeps firing and keeps firing. So what we do is once we've gotten to it, once the event has been fired, once the event has been raised or has been is to be processed, we set the color to black, start drawing the line, get our current location, set it to the X and Y start to the current location. So the next time it picks it up, we're making sure we're drawing a line from where we were. I know it's a little confusing, but if you sort of follow it through on paper, it makes a lot of sense. It didn't make sense to me when I first saw it, but it does make a lot of sense when you look at how the events are triggered and what they're doing. Again, the key thing to realize is the mouse press happens when you first push down on the mouse button, and then as you keep dragging, the mouse dragged event keeps repeating. Events can be fired more than once. You can click on a button more than once. You can hit enter in a text box more than once. You can move the mouse with the button down without letting up on the button. Okay, so all of these things can happen quite a bit. Finally, of course, we're going to handle if the window is closed. If the window is closed, we're going to go ahead and exit the application, and I'll show you. The application quits, and the program exits. If you have any questions on this, I know it was a pretty fast review of this program, but it's a pretty interesting program. once you look at all the complexity. It's there for a reason. It's hard. This is something that is hard to do. Conceptually, it's hard to figure out how you might do it. I know it was hard for me when I first started doing ink-enabled applications on in the Microsoft .NET languages. I think Java here makes it kind of easy. It does take a few minutes to look at this code and really think about what it does in order to sort of get at how it works. But I think this review should have helped. Again, if you have any questions about this, please let me know. You can either save everything up to the end or send them to me as you go through. Send them to me via email, and I will try to address them as quickly as I can. Otherwise, you can click on Next and take a look at the next activity where we talk about where we're going to talk about changing the look and feel of the window and how that affects the way things display.